Welcome to the North American premiere of Port Authority by Danielle Lessovitz, who is the writer-director for the film. And this is her first feature, and it was selected to Cannes Film Festival in May, screening in the A Certain Regard session. And that's when I watched the film. And it's my great pleasure that Danielle is with us here tonight. And would you please join me in giving her a warm welcome?
Thank you so much. Thank you to Vancouver International Film Festival and again all of the volunteers. It's really just a joy to be here and to present the film to you today. It's our North American premiere, so you're the first audience to see the film kind of in its native territory, somewhat. It's a film that comes from a really special place. I'm sure all directors say this because you know to make a film you need to really love your subject, and you spend so long just thinking about your characters and thinking about the world and thinking about who you want to film it with you and the team and all of this. But it's truly it was a huge journey to make this film, which is why it feels particularly wonderful to be here and show it to you today. In the U.S. especially, I don't know about Canada, but in the U.S. there's quite a lot of violence against trans women, and especially trans women of color. And for me, part of that has to do with just not having enough representations. As an artist and as a filmmaker, there's this, I feel like we have a responsibility to show a diversity of representations to deepen our collective sense of humanity around these issues and around individuals who are living in some ways at the margins of society. So it's a film that for the first time shows a trans woman of color who's not a sex worker or who's just absolutely deserving of love, and then it becomes a situation where it's the responsibility of the protagonist to really come into an understanding of whether or not he's worthy of her love and whether or not his actions constitute someone who can be the person to love her in many ways. For me, part of it was not to just focus on trans issues, but to also focus on what I feel to be the source of it, which is a kind of distortion in culture and in gender, and to, in an empathetic way, at least for me, to deconstruct ideas of masculinity and the pressures of what it means to be a man, and why you would feel, or why there would be a threat, a sort of an existential threat to one's manhood by loving or feeling love for someone of trans experience. So it was important for me to deconstruct that, to look at that, and with a kindness and love to understand what those pressures might be. And also on top of that, in the US there's so much polarization going on, and it's so hard to kind of have sometimes conversations that instead of looking at what separates us, so going beyond race and going beyond gender, to just look at what is common to us as humans and what is part of the human experience. And so for me, I wanted to take a film that looks at class, and that takes a film that sort of takes those things a little bit for the second to the side, and talks about a kind of deeper humanity running through all of us. So I thank you for participating in this experience, in this moment with me, and I hope you enjoy. We took about 1.5 years to cast this role, and I had seen hundreds, if not thousands, of tapes. And I'd seen her tape very early on, but she was living in Italy with her boyfriend, and she couldn't come to any kind of casting session. And for me, it was, the question I had was, it's a collaboration, so how can, I need to be able to sort of feel your energy, to feel how we would work together, and I couldn't with her. And then 1 year into the process, I had some people that I was very interested in, but she came back to the US, and I met with her, and immediately it felt like such a great, I actually played the role of Paul in the audition with her, and I was just really in the scene with her, and I was sort of directing her through my performance, and she was really listening and responding, and so I thought, this is gonna be great. Yeah.
This is your first acting role.
Yeah, she had no she's modeled in the past, but she had no experience, no.
And it's fine working with her and Whitehead, who is sort of, has appeared in big film like Dunkirk.
Right.
So it's not too sort of difficult to direct a more professional and a non-professional actor?
No, I think in some ways she was really quite easy to direct. In every single take and in every single performance, she was giving so many like incredible moments, and she was just very alive on the camera. I think her relationship to the cat, there's parts in this film where she is really talking about moments from her life. She's telling stories like the pink jacket's really a story of hers, and she was, I think, dying to play a role in which she could present parts of her life story to an audience. So she was really just wonderful to work with, yeah.
Yes.
Great film, appreciate it. Are you from New York City?
I grew up in Kansas. I was born in San Francisco, and I grew up in Kansas City. And then I've lived for like the past decade in New York. Yeah.
Nice. I was there last summer. When did you film this?
We filmed this time last year, more or less.
Yeah, I may have been in town.
Yeah, right.
But I had a couple of comments. I mean, I absolutely love the juxtaposition of your storyline. Maybe more of a comment of local trans issues. We have known TERF SWERF speaking at our local university, and we're part of a group actually in the row here that is fighting local trans antagonism and sex work antagonism, and activism, and pushing back against cis heteronormative fascism locally is alive and well. I'm here to announce, and that it takes a lot of work to continue to push a narrative that is not, how would I put it, palatable, normal, those kinds of things. So I think I had a lot of things to say, certainly being a lover of ballroom culture, because I'm old enough to actually remember when it started. That's how old I am, actually. I'm a lover of pose, so like there's a lot of this film that I absolutely adore, and I appreciate that, and I'm totally would probably purchase your download when it's online.
Thank you. Yeah, I find that in the U.S., as sort of globally, there's more awareness of trans issues. I think on the local levels, there is a lot of antagonism. What's shocking to me, and in having this film go to different countries, is where the world is at in sort of becoming aware. In Europe especially, I found that that there is a lot of work to be done, and for me, what was so simple of like, what can we tell this love story seems sort of revolutionary over there, and I don't know if it has the same effect here in North America, where I think there's a little bit more awareness, but it's for me, and I know you mentioned like normalizing or things that are not normal, but I do think that this is a very it's part of what it is to be human, and it's as long as humans have been alive, we've had people of trans experience, and for me, of course, bringing nuance is important, but also doing the work of kind of normalizing a little bit and saying this exists, it's always exists. Why have we not talked about it? Why have we not shown this in film? It's bizarre to me to even think about, but a lot of it's not this way, I think, for a lot of people. So yeah, thank you for being here. And
I have a flyer for you, and I'm also the founder of the Trans Day of Remembrance, and we'll be doing that. And I also maybe, in conclusion, wanted to is there a way to screen this?
of course, yeah, of course. If
I would like to talk about it.
sure, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I saw a hand here.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the film. Thank you very much. I particularly like that you included class difference, that you included race difference, obviously sexuality difference. Yeah, to get all those in the same bag is quite a trick. And then you chose comedy, or in other words, a love story. How did you come to choose comedy? I mean, there's so many dark films out, and it would have been very easy to make a dark film out of this subject. So how did you come to to move towards, romantic comedy?
That's sweet of you to say. I don't know. I mean, I wrote, maybe I can be playful at times in the writing. I don't know. It wasn't overtly meant to be funny necessarily, but it is.
I don't mean funny.
Yeah, there are moments of levity. I think, for me, the strongest, sometimes often way of rebelling against a certain situation or showing resistance is through joy and through celebrating joy. And I don't know that being trenched in or steeped in pain is often the best approach. It's about showing beauty and showing life and showing joy. And I think this is how we move forward. Yeah.
So speaking of that, I'm just wondering with the the people with the participants in the Kiki ballroom, are they all get along like that, kind of like?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they've known each other for a really long time. They're not they're not all in the same house in the film, but they've all known each other and they're all kind of loosely related. And when you hang out, when we all hang out together, it's.
So you also cast them kind of because they're also non-professional.
Right. Yeah, I felt that it was important for the individuals who are representing that community to be from that community, for sure.
And they don't find it invasive that you sort of go into the community, kind of like,
No, everyone was really, when we explained the project and the intent of the project, we workshopped the script with a lot of people from different houses. And we talked about the racial issues and we talked about how we were going to lens it. And, the interesting thing about this project is that what you see in front of the camera is also represented by the crew. I mean, many, like our costuming and production designers are all in houses in this community. It was a very mixed crew. And so I think they were very open to us and appreciative of the film and the subject and everything, and it was wonderful. And we're all friends, and they're now in the House of McQueen, and it's wonderful.
Yes, there's a head there.
He read an earlier draft. RT Features has a film fund with him, the Scorsese Film Fund. And someone had mentioned I was working on something, and I sent it to that person, and they read it, and they sent it to his producer, and she read it, and then he read it, and they sort of liked the draft. So through him, we were able to put together a lot of the financing, and because of that, Finn came on, and and he was just there to kind of observe and make, give comments and things as we went about it. So I think it was just luck, something like this. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
My partner made a comment, and I think it's worth voicing. We really appreciated the way you juxtaposed the openness of female character to versus the closeness and the kind of resistance for him to share what he was struggling with, not just the love part, but he really didn't want to divulge some of his own perceived weaknesses versus living in the shelter. And it was a very interesting position that you offered there in the film as well.
Yeah, because if he had been very upfront with her at the beginning, it's most likely that she would have accepted him, and that for me is again a sort of trying to look at the pressures of masculinity and what that means. What does it mean to be a man? And this idea of being a provider, being strong, and not having vulnerabilities. And if you have a character who is very vulnerable, how do they show that? And is that something that would also threaten their a sort of a masculine identity? And someone like Y has worked through all of this. I liked the idea of a character of Y who is very self-affirming, who has a tremendous amount of confidence, openness, and a huge heart, and she's able to kind of embrace him, but to what extent, right? Thank you for mentioning that.
in a way, she's the, contrary to most other films, she's not the victim, she's the one who's going to rescue him in a way.
A little bit. And I think it's the case when you have any difficulty in life or when the society that you live in isn't necessarily up to speed with you, you become, I think, because you have to do so much soul searching and so much self-realization, you become more knowledgeable about yourself and more and just stronger. And I wanted to write this very strong role for her. So.
She's definitely a lot more feeling better in her own skin than
Right.
the male protagonist.
Right.
And I think we have time for maybe one more question. Is there any question there? Sorry, okay.
Can I ask just a creative decision? All the shots were handheld. Can you want to talk a little bit about your choices in that?
Sure. A big part of our lensing strategy was to try to really be viscerally with the characters. We wanted to avoid any kind of fetishization of the body, of the dance, of anything. So it was about how do we communicate what it is to be in the skin of these characters. And we found that, handheld was just an easier way to really link into and settle into that sort of direct body-to-body relationship with the characters. Yeah.
Well, before wrapping, as I mentioned, this is your first film. So are you working on a next project, your second film?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes. I haven't talked about it though. I don't know if I should talk about it.
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
I'm just sort of curious. Yeah. So, anyway, thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Danielle, for joining us at this.
Thank you so much for coming, Mary.